The gunshot echoed through Oro Grande, Arizona territory, like a warning, a sound that would change everything. Amelia Donovan flinched as the bullet shattered the window of her father's general store, sending glass raining down on the freshly stocked shelves. It was 1885, and the West wasn't getting any tamer, despite what the newspapers back east might claim. "Get down," her father shouted, pulling her behind the counter as another shot rang out, this one splintering the wooden doorframe. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs. At 22, she'd seen her share of violence since moving west 3 years ago, but never had it come so close to home. The sound of hooves pounding dirt followed, then faded into the distance as the riders departed. Her father cautiously rose, his weathered face tight with anger. "Calloway's men," he muttered, brushing glass from his sleeve. "This is his answer to my refusal to sell." Oro Grande had once been little more than a way station between larger settlements, but the discovery of gold in the nearby mountains had transformed it almost overnight. Now men like Victor Calloway, wealthy cattle baron with eyes on everything he didn't already own, were squeezing out the smaller businesses that had been there from the beginning. "We can't keep doing this, Pa," Amelia said, already reaching for the broom. "One day they'll do more than shoot windows." Thomas Donovan straightened his vest with dignity. "This store is all I have to give you, Amelia. I won't have your inheritance stolen by thugs." Amelia swept glass into neat piles, knowing the argument was pointless. Her father was stubborn as the desert itself. They'd come west following her mother's death, seeking a fresh start, and he'd built this business from nothing. He wasn't about to surrender it now. "I'm heading to the sheriff's office," her father announced, reaching for his hat. "Lock the door behind me." Once alone, Amelia felt the weight of their situation pressing in. Sheriff Wilson was in Calloway's pocket, everyone knew it. Complaints would vanish like water in the desert. She finished cleaning, then checked their inventory, marking down what they'd need to order. The broken window would mean less money for new stock this month. By evening, her father hadn't returned. Worry gnawed at her as she closed the store and headed upstairs to their modest living quarters. She prepared a simple supper, ears straining for the sound of his footsteps. When the knock finally came, it wasn't at their private entrance but at the store door below. "Miss Donovan," a voice called. "It's Deputy Larson." Cold dread washed through her. She descended the stairs slowly, lamp in hand, and unlocked the door to find the young deputy shifting nervously on his feet. "I'm sorry, Miss Donovan. Your father's been arrested for assault. Got into it with one of Calloway's men at the saloon. Sheriff says he'll be held until morning at least." Amelia's knuckles whitened around the lamp handle. "That's ridiculous. My father doesn't drink, and he certainly doesn't brawl in saloons." The deputy avoided her eyes. "Sheriff says there were witnesses." "Witnesses Calloway paid, no doubt," she retorted, reaching for her shawl. "I'm coming with you." "No, madam," Deputy Larson said firmly. "Sheriff says no visitors tonight. Come by in the morning." When the deputy left, Amelia stood in the darkened store, mind racing. Her father, locked in a jail cell on false charges, it was precisely the kind of intimidation Calloway specialized in. She couldn't leave him there all night. But what could she do? The Silver Spur Saloon would still be open. If her father had truly been there, someone might have seen what really happened. It wasn't proper for an unmarried woman to enter such an establishment, but propriety seemed a small concern when her father's freedom was at stake. Decision made, Amelia changed into her plainest dress and pinned her auburn hair severely back. She tucked a small derringer into her pocket, a gift from her father after their first year in Oro Grande, and slipped out into the night. The main street was quiet save for the muted piano music and laughter spilling from the saloon at the far end. Lights glowed in the windows, casting long shadows across the dirt road. Amelia walked briskly, ignoring the curious glances from the few people still out at this hour. She hesitated only briefly at the batwing doors of the Silver Spur before pushing through. The smoky interior fell momentarily silent as heads turned to regard the unexpected female visitor. Amelia forced herself to walk steadily to the bar, where a balding man with an impressive mustache was polishing glasses. "I'm looking for information about what happened with my father, Thomas Donovan, earlier tonight," she said, keeping her voice low but firm. The bartender glanced around nervously. "Don't know nothing about it, miss. Maybe you should be getting home." "Please," she persisted. "He's been arrested for something he didn't do. Someone here must have seen what really happened." "Nobody saw nothing," a voice drawled from behind her. "Except your pa throwing the first punch. Ain't that right, boys?" Amelia turned to find herself face to face with one of Calloway's ranch hands, the one called Jenkins, whose crooked nose and mean eyes were well known in town. 3 more of Calloway's men stood nearby, smirking. "My father wouldn't strike anyone without cause," Amelia replied coolly, though her heart raced. "What did you do to provoke him?" Jenkins stepped closer, the smell of whiskey heavy on his breath. "Maybe you should worry more about your own safety than your pa's, Miss Donovan. Pretty girl like you shouldn't be in a place like this." The threat in his words was unmistakable. Amelia's hand moved to her pocket, fingers curling around the derringer. "The lady asked you a question." The new voice came from the shadows in the corner of the room. A man rose from his table and stepped into the light. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that brushed his collar and eyes the color of a storm cloud, he moved with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to danger. He wasn't wearing a gun belt, but there was something in his manner that made the absence seem irrelevant. Jenkins faltered. "This ain't your business, stranger. I'm making it my business." The man stepped closer, his gaze never leaving Jenkins. 4 against 1 seems unfair odds, especially when the one is a lady. "You don't know what you're getting into," Jenkins warned, but there was uncertainty in his tone now. The stranger smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Why don't you enlighten me?" For a tense moment, Amelia thought violence would erupt. Then Jenkins spat on the floor and gestured to his companions. "Come on, boys, ain't worth my time." As they retreated to another table, the stranger turned to Amelia. "You all right, madam?" "Yes, thank you, Mr. Prescott." "Cole Prescott." He tipped his hat slightly. "And you're Miss Donovan, I gather. I was hoping to have a chance to speak with you, though I didn't expect it would be under these circumstances." Amelia studied him cautiously. "You know who I am." "I arrived in town this afternoon and was asking around about the local businesses. Your name came up." His expression softened slightly. "I heard about what happened at your store today, and now your father's been arrested." Amelia nodded, relief at finding someone willing to talk overcoming her natural caution. "On false charges. I'm trying to find out what really happened." Cole glanced around the saloon. "This isn't the place for that conversation. May I escort you somewhere safer?" Under normal circumstances, Amelia would never have considered accepting such an offer from a stranger. But these weren't normal circumstances, and there was something about Cole Prescott that inspired trust, despite his dangerous aura. "There's a cafe down the street that should still be open," she suggested. Outside, the night air was cool and clear, a welcome relief from the saloon's stuffiness. As they walked, Amelia explained her father's conflict with Calloway. It started small pressure to sell, hints about what might happen if he refused. Then supplies stopped arriving, customers were intimidated. Today was the first time they've resorted to outright violence. Cole listened attentively. "And the sheriff?" "In Calloway's pocket," Amelia confirmed bitterly. "Most of the town is too afraid to stand against him." They reached Martha's Cafe, a small establishment that catered to travelers and locals who preferred coffee to whiskey. Martha herself, a plump widow in her 50s, looked surprised to see customers so late but welcomed them with fresh coffee. Once they were seated in a quiet corner, Cole leaned forward. "I was at the saloon earlier when your father came in. He wasn't drinking, just asking questions similar to what you were doing." Jenkins and his friends surrounded him, said some things I couldn't hear clearly, but from your father's reaction, I'd guess they threatened you." Amelia's hands tightened around her coffee cup. And then Jenkins shoved him. Your father pushed back defensive, not aggressive. That's when Sheriff Wilson appeared, almost as if he'd been waiting for it. Arrested your father immediately, wouldn't listen to anyone who tried to speak up. "Were you one of those who tried?" Cole's expression clouded. "No. I was watching from the back. Didn't want to draw attention to myself just yet." "Why?" Amelia asked directly. "Who are you really, Mr. Prescott? What brings you to Oro Grande?" He hesitated, then reached into his vest pocket and withdrew a folded document. "I'm a federal marshal, Miss Donovan." "Here on official business." Amelia took the badge he offered, examining it in the lamplight. "What business?" "Investigating Victor Calloway. He's not just bullying local shopkeepers, he's suspected of running a large-scale operation stealing government gold shipments. The mines here have made Oro Grande a regular stop for gold transports, and 3 have been robbed in the last year." Hope flickered within Amelia. "Then you can help my father?" "I intend to," Cole assured her, "but I need to be careful. If Calloway discovers who I am too soon, it could compromise the entire investigation. I've been working on this case for 6 months, tracking him from Nevada." "What can I do?" Cole studied her for a moment. "For now, nothing. Go home, wait until morning, then go to the sheriff's office as if you know nothing about what really happened. I'll see what I can do behind the scenes. And if that doesn't work, then we'll try something else. I promise you, Miss Donovan, your father won't remain in that cell any longer than necessary." As they left the cafe, Cole insisted on walking Amelia back to the store. The streets were emptier now, and she was grateful for his presence. "Thank you," she said when they reached her door. "Few people in this town would have helped a stranger the way you helped me tonight." "I have a feeling you'd do the same," Cole replied. "Get some rest, Miss Donovan. Tomorrow may be a long day." Amelia watched him walk away, his figure merging with the shadows. For the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps with Marshal Prescott's help, they might finally be free of Calloway's threats. She had no way of knowing that this night would mark the beginning of a story far more complex and dangerous than she could imagine. Morning came with golden light streaming through the bedroom window. Amelia had slept fitfully, her dreams filled with gunshots and jail cells. She dressed quickly in a practical blue skirt and white blouse, braiding her hair into a single plait down her back. Before heading out, she checked the store everything was as she'd left it, including the broken window now covered with a wooden board. The sheriff's office sat squarely in the center of town, a solid brick building that housed both the jail and Wilson's private quarters. Amelia squared her shoulders before entering, preparing herself for a confrontation. Sheriff Wilson glanced up from his desk, expression hardening when he saw her. "Miss Donovan, figured you'd be by. I've come to see my father," she stated firmly. "Visiting hours start at noon." "This isn't a prison, Sheriff. It's a small town jail, and that's my father you're holding on false charges." Wilson rose, hitching his thumbs in his belt. "False, is it? Got 4 witnesses say he started a fight in the Silver Spur. That's disturbing the peace at minimum, assault at worst." "And all 4 witnesses work for Calloway," Amelia countered. "Convenient, isn't it? Watch your tone, Miss Donovan. Accusations like that could land you in trouble." A new voice entered the conversation. "Good morning, Sheriff, Miss Donovan." Cole Prescott stood in the doorway, looking every inch the respectable businessman in a well-cut suit. Only his eyes alert and assessing hinted at his true profession. "Don't believe we've met," Wilson said warily. "Cole Prescott." He extended his hand, which Wilson reluctantly shook. "I've recently arrived in town with interest in local investments. Miss Donovan's establishment caught my eye yesterday, but I understand there was some trouble." "Nothing that concerns you," Wilson replied gruffly. "On the contrary." Cole's tone remained pleasant, but there was steel beneath it. "I'm considering a significant investment in her business. Mr. Donovan and I had arranged to meet this morning to discuss terms. His absence is very much my concern." Wilson's eyes narrowed suspiciously. You're saying you've got business with Donovan? That's exactly what I'm saying. And I must say, Sheriff, I find it odd that a respected businessman would be held overnight for what amounts to a minor altercation. In my experience, such matters are typically resolved with a fine. Amelia watched with silent admiration as Cole expertly backed Wilson into a corner. The sheriff clearly hadn't expected anyone to challenge his authority, especially not a well-dressed stranger who spoke with such confidence. There's procedures to follow, Wilson muttered. Of course, Cole agreed smoothly. And I respect that. Perhaps you could follow them now. I'm certain a man of Mr. Donovan's standing in the community can be released on his own recognizance, particularly with both his daughter and a potential business partner vouching for him. For a moment, Wilson looked like he might refuse. Then he reached for his keys with obvious reluctance. Fine, but he'll need to appear before Judge Parker when he comes through next week. Naturally, Cole replied. They followed Wilson to the cells at the back. Thomas Donovan sat on a narrow cot, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled from a night in jail. His face brightened when he saw Amelia, then turned questioning as he noticed Cole. Pa, this is Mr. Prescott, Amelia explained as Wilson unlocked the cell. He's been kind enough to help secure your release. Her father nodded cautiously. Much obliged, sir. We have business to discuss, Cole said meaningfully. Perhaps at your store once you've had a chance to freshen up, Thomas caught on quickly. Yes, of course, the investment opportunity we spoke of. Outside, once they were safely out of Wilson's earshot, Thomas turned to Cole. I don't know who you really are, Mr. Prescott, but I thank you for your help. Pa, Amelia said quietly, Mr. Prescott is a federal marshal. He's investigating Calloway. Thomas's eyes widened. Is that so? Cole glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. It is. And I'd appreciate if that information remained between us for now. You have my word, Thomas promised, but why help me? Several reasons, Cole replied as they walked toward the store. First, it was the right thing to do. Second, I need allies in this town, people who aren't afraid of Calloway. And third, I need information that you might be able to provide. Back at the store, Amelia brewed fresh coffee while her father changed his clothes. When they were all settled in the small sitting room above the shop, Cole explained his investigation in more detail. Calloway moved here about 2 years ago, correct? Thomas nodded. Bought the largest ranch in the territory. Started expanding immediately, pushing out smaller ranchers, pressuring businesses. Before that, he was operating in Nevada, running a similar operation. The pattern is always the same. He establishes himself as a legitimate businessman, then uses that position to gather intelligence on valuable shipments. The robberies are sophisticated, well-planned. And you think he's behind the gold shipment robberies? Amelia asked. I know he is, Cole confirmed. What I need is proof. Evidence that will stand up in court. Thomas frowned thoughtfully. The last robbery was about 2 months ago. That night, Calloway's foreman Jenkins and several others were celebrating at the Silver Spur, spending money like it was water. I remember thinking it odd, since they hadn't been paid recently. That's the kind of information I need, Cole said. Patterns, unusual behavior, unexpected wealth. Calloway's careful, but his men are less so. They talked for another hour, with Thomas and Amelia sharing everything they knew about Calloway's operation. Cole listened intently, occasionally making notes in a small book. What happens now? Amelia finally asked. I continue my investigation. To everyone in town except you two, I'm a businessman looking to invest in local enterprises. That gives me reason to be asking questions, meeting people. And what about us? Thomas inquired. Calloway won't stop pressuring us to sell. Cole's expression hardened. I can't move officially against him until I have evidence, but I can help protect you. For one thing, having a potential investor interested in your business might make Calloway think twice about direct attacks. So you'll be around regularly, Amelia said, trying to ignore the flutter in her chest at the prospect. I will, and I'll start by helping fix that window downstairs. Despite Thomas's protests, Cole insisted on assisting with the repairs. Amelia watched them work together, her father gradually warming to the marshal as they shared stories of their respective journeys west. Cole revealed that he'd grown up in Boston, the son of a lawyer who'd expected him to follow the same path. Law school didn't suit me, he explained as he measured the new glass pane. I wanted something more active, more immediate. When the war ended, I headed west like so many others, worked as a sheriff's deputy in Kansas for a few years before joining the marshal's service. And your family? Amelia asked, handing him the cutting tool. A shadow crossed his face. Lost my parents to influenza in '79. No siblings. The Marshalls are my family now, I suppose. There was something in his tone, a loneliness that resonated with Amelia's own. She'd made acquaintances in Oro Grande, but few true friends. Between helping her father with the store and fending off unwanted suitors, typically men who were more interested in acquiring a business than a wife, there had been little time for social connections. As evening approached, customers began trickling in, curious about the new glass and even more curious about Cole. Amelia overheard whispers about the handsome investor and tried not to blush when Mrs. Peterson winked at her suggestively while purchasing flour. Word travels fast in Oro Grande, she commented after the last customer had left. That works in our favor, Cole replied, washing dust from his hands. By morning, Calloway will know I'm interested in your store. With luck, it'll buy us some time. You should stay for supper, Thomas offered. It's the least we can do. Cole hesitated, then nodded. I'd be honored. Supper was simple but satisfying: beef stew, fresh bread, and apple pie that Amelia had baked the previous day. The conversation flowed easily, and Amelia found herself studying Cole when he wasn't looking. There was a gentleness to him that seemed at odds with his dangerous profession, a thoughtfulness in how he listened to her father's stories. After the meal, Thomas excused himself, citing exhaustion from his night in jail. Once he'd gone to his room, an awkward silence fell between Amelia and Cole. I should be going, Cole said finally, rising from his chair. Thank you for the meal. Where are you staying? Amelia asked as she walked him to the door, the Grand Hotel. It's not particularly grand, but it serves its purpose. At the door, he turned to face her. Miss Donovan, Amelia, please. After everything today, I think we can dispense with formalities. He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his serious face. Amelia, then, and I'm Cole. Cole. She tested the name, finding she liked the way it felt on her tongue. Thank you again for helping my father. It was my pleasure. He hesitated, then added, I want you to be careful. Calloway isn't the type to give up easily. If he or his men approach you, don't engage. Send word to me immediately. I can take care of myself, she assured him, patting her pocket where the derringer usually resided. His expression turned serious. I don't doubt that, but Calloway is dangerous in ways you might not expect. Promise me you'll be cautious. The intensity in his gray eyes made her breath catch. I promise. After Cole left, Amelia found herself standing at the window, watching his tall figure move down the darkening street. There was something about him that intrigued her beyond his role as their potential savior. A complexity, a depth of character that she rarely encountered in Oro Grande. She shook herself out of her reverie and began clearing the table. She couldn't afford to be distracted by romantic notions, not with her father's business and possibly their lives at stake. Cole Prescott was a federal marshal doing his job, nothing more. Yet as she prepared for bed, she couldn't help but wonder what might have brought him to her doorstep if circumstances had been different. The next few days established a pattern. Cole would visit the store each morning, ostensibly to discuss business investments. They would talk loudly about expansion possibilities, building improvements, and supply contracts whenever customers were present. When alone, the conversation shifted to Calloway's operations and Cole's investigation. Amelia found herself looking forward to these visits more than she cared to admit. Cole was unlike any man she'd met before, thoughtful, respectful, and genuinely interested in her opinions. He didn't treat her as merely Thomas's daughter, but as a partner in their strategic discussions. On the fourth day, as they were reviewing a ledger together behind the counter, the store door opened with such force that the bell nearly tore from its mounting. Victor Calloway himself stood in the doorway, flanked by Jenkins and another of his men. Calloway was in his 40s, expensively dressed, with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to getting his way. His cold blue eyes assessed the store before settling on Cole with obvious displeasure. "So you're the Easterner who's been sniffing around my town," he said without preamble. Cole straightened unhurriedly. "Mr. Calloway, I presume I wasn't aware you owned the entire town." "Figure of speech," Calloway replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I understand you're interested in investing in this establishment." "That's correct. The Donovan General Store has excellent potential." Calloway laughed shortly. "Potential to drain your funds, perhaps. It's barely breaking even from what I hear." "Your information is outdated," Cole replied coolly. "The business is quite sound, but I'm curious, why would that concern you?" "I like to know what's happening in Oro Grande. New investments, new people. It's simple curiosity." "Of course." Cole's tone made it clear he didn't believe that for a moment. "Was there something specific you wanted to purchase today, Mr. Calloway? Miss Donovan would be happy to assist you." The tension in the store was palpable. Amelia stood her ground beside Cole, though her heart raced. Calloway studied them both, his gaze calculating. "I've been hoping to purchase this property for some time," he said finally. "Mr. Donovan has been reluctant. Perhaps you could persuade him of the wisdom of selling." "That would hardly serve my interests," Cole pointed out. "Since I plan to invest in the business, not dismantle it," Calloway's expression hardened, "you might want to reconsider. Oro Grande can be dangerous for outsiders who don't understand local customs." "Is that a threat, Mr. Calloway? Merely friendly advice?" Calloway adjusted his hat. "Think on it, Mr. Prescott. Your investment capital would be better placed elsewhere. I'd be happy to discuss opportunities at my ranch sometime." After they left, Amelia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That was direct." "More than I expected," Cole agreed. "He's worried about our partnership. That's good, it means he believes it. But now you're a target too." Cole's hand briefly covered hers on the counter. "I can handle myself, Amelia. This isn't my first dangerous assignment." The warmth of his touch lingered even after he withdrew his hand. "What happens next?" "We maintain our cover. I'll continue negotiating with your father, making it public knowledge that I'm investing in the store. Meanwhile, I need to find a way into Calloway's operation." That evening, Cole joined them for supper again. As they ate, he outlined his plan to infiltrate Calloway's inner circle. "He invited me to the ranch. I'll take him up on it, express interest in his cattle operation. If he thinks I might invest with him instead of you, he might let his guard down." "It's too risky," Amelia protested. "What if he recognizes you from somewhere, or discovers you're a marshal?" "That's always a risk in my line of work," Cole acknowledged. "But it's necessary. We need evidence linking him directly to the robberies." Thomas nodded gravely. "Marshal Prescott knows what he's doing, Amelia. And the sooner Calloway is behind bars, the safer we'll all be." After supper, Thomas retired early again, leaving Amelia and Cole alone. They moved to the small parlor, where a single lamp cast warm light over the modest furniture. "You're worried?" Cole observed as Amelia poured coffee. "Of course I am. Calloway is dangerous if he discovers who you really are." "He won't. You can't know that." Cole accepted the coffee cup, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. "Why does my safety concern you so much, Amelia?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. She turned away, busying herself with straightening items on the sideboard. "You've helped us. I don't want to see you harmed because of our problems." "Is that the only reason?" She faced him then, finding him closer than expected. What other reason would there be? His gray eyes searched hers. I think you know. The air between them seemed to change, becoming charged with something Amelia had never experienced before. Cole set down his coffee cup and took a step closer. I've been a marshal for 6 years, he said quietly. In that time, I've never been distracted from a case. Until now. Amelia's heart thundered in her chest. And what's distracting you, Marshal? You. The simple word carried such weight. From the moment I saw you in that saloon, standing up to men twice your size without flinching, I've been captivated. We barely know each other, she whispered, though even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. The intensity of the past few days had created a connection between them that defied conventional timelines. I know enough, Cole replied. I know you're brave, intelligent, loyal. I know you love your father and this town. I know your coffee is terrible, but your apple pie is the best I've ever tasted. That made her laugh despite her nervousness. My coffee is not terrible. It's dreadful, he insisted with a smile. But I drink it anyway, just to see you smile when you pour it. His honesty disarmed her. In Oro Grande, men typically approached her with practiced lines and transparent motives. Cole's straightforwardness was refreshingly different. I don't know what to say, she admitted. You don't need to say anything, I just wanted you to know. He stepped back slightly. I've never been good at hiding my feelings, and I don't intend to start now, but I also understand that this isn't the time or place for complications. We have a job to finish first. Amelia nodded, though part of her wanted to reach for him to close the distance he'd just created. Calloway. Yes, once he's dealt with, perhaps we could. He left the thought unfinished. Perhaps, she agreed softly. The moment was interrupted by a knock at the door downstairs. They exchanged glances, both suddenly alert. Are you expecting anyone? Cole asked, hand moving instinctively to his concealed weapon. No. Amelia reached for the derringer she now kept in her skirt pocket. Stay here, Cole instructed, moving silently to the stairs. Not likely, she retorted, following him. The knocking came again, more insistent. Cole positioned himself to one side of the door, gun drawn but hidden behind his back. Amelia stood behind the counter, her small pistol ready beneath a folded cloth. Who's there? Cole called. Deputy Larson, sir. Got an urgent message. Cole nodded to Amelia, who unlocked the door. The young deputy entered hurriedly, hat in hand, looking nervous. Sorry to disturb you, but there's trouble brewing. Calloway's men are gathering at the Silver Spur, getting liquored up. Overheard them talking about teaching some lessons tonight. What kind of lessons? Amelia asked, dread forming in her stomach. Didn't say specifically, madam, but they mentioned your pa by name, and you, Mr. Prescott. Cole's expression darkened. How many men? 6, maybe 7. All armed. Where's Sheriff Wilson? Larson looked uncomfortable. Said he was turning in early, told us not to disturb him unless the town was burning down. Convenient, Cole muttered. Deputy, is there anyone else in town who might help? Anyone not under Calloway's thumb? Few of the miners might. Maybe old Jim Barrett, he used to be a Texas Ranger before he retired here. Get them, Cole instructed. Quietly, have them meet at the livery stable in 30 minutes. Tell them there might be trouble and we need men we can trust. After Larson left, Cole turned to Amelia. Wake your father. Pack whatever valuables you can carry quickly. I need to get you both somewhere safe. We're not leaving our home, Amelia protested. Not permanently, Cole assured her. Just until I can deal with this. If Calloway's men are planning something tonight, I don't want you in their path. Reluctantly, Amelia went to rouse her father and explain the situation. Thomas initially objected to leaving, but Cole's reasoning eventually convinced him. Within 20 minutes, they had packed small bags and secured the store as best they could. The mission church outside town, Cole decided. Father Mendoza will shelter you for the night. It's the last place Calloway's men would look. They slipped out the back way, moving through the shadows toward the livery stable where Deputy Larson waited with 4 grim-faced men. Jim Barrett was instantly recognizable, tall and weathered, with a shock of white hair and the watchful eyes of a man who'd seen his share of violence. The others were miners from the nearby diggings, solid men with calloused hands and determined expressions. "Marshal," Barrett greeted Cole quietly, confirming that Larson had revealed Cole's true identity to these trusted few. "Been wondering when someone would take on Calloway." "Tonight's not about taking him down," Cole explained. "It's about preventing violence against innocent people. I need to get the Donovans to safety, then deal with whatever Calloway's men are planning." "We'll help," Barrett assured him. "Boys here are tired of Calloway running roughshod over this town." Cole outlined his plan quickly. Barrett and two of the miners would escort Thomas and Amelia to the Mission Church and stand guard there. Cole, Larson, and the remaining miners would return to town to monitor the saloon and intervene if necessary. As they prepared to separate, Amelia pulled Cole aside. "Be careful." "Always am." "I mean it," she insisted, gripping his arm. "Don't take unnecessary risks." The concern in her eyes touched him deeply. On impulse, he leaned down and pressed a quick kiss to her cheek. "I'll see you in the morning, that's a promise." The journey to the mission was tense but uneventful. Father Mendoza, awakened by their arrival, welcomed them warmly and prepared a small room where Thomas could rest. Amelia, too anxious to sleep, remained in the chapel with Barrett, watching through the window for any sign of trouble. "Your marshal seems a capable man," Barrett commented as they sat in the dim light of a single candle. "He's not my marshal," Amelia replied automatically. Barrett chuckled. "If you say so, but I saw the way he looked at you and the way you looked back. Reminds me of how my Martha and I were, back when we were young." Amelia didn't answer, but she couldn't stop the warmth that spread through her at his words. Was it that obvious? "Calloway won't give up easily," Barrett continued more seriously. "Even if tonight passes without incident, he'll try again. Man like that doesn't accept defeat." "What would you do if you were in our position?" Barrett considered the question thoughtfully. "Stand your ground, but be smart about it. Gather allies. Document everything: threats, damages, witnesses. Build a case that even a corrupt sheriff can't ignore." That's essentially what Marshal Prescott has been saying. Then he's as smart as he looks. Barrett peered out the window at the distant town lights. "Hope he's careful tonight. Drunken men with guns are unpredictable." Hours passed with agonizing slowness. Amelia dozed fitfully in the hard wooden pew, starting awake at every sound. Shortly before dawn, the chapel door opened and Cole entered with Deputy Larson. Both looked exhausted but unharmed. Amelia rushed to them. "What happened?" "Calloway's men got rowdy, started making specific threats against your store," Cole explained. "We intervened before they could act on them. There was a brief confrontation but no serious injuries." "On either side?" Thomas asked, emerging from the back room. Cole nodded. Sheriff Wilson appeared eventually, made a show of arresting two of Calloway's men for disturbing the peace. They'll be released by noon, but it bought us some time. "What now?" Amelia asked. "Now we go back to town and continue as planned. Calloway will be more cautious after tonight, especially since he'll realize there are people in Oro Grande willing to stand against him." The sun was rising as they returned to town, painting the desert landscape in gold and red. The general store stood undamaged, a small victory in itself. Cole insisted on checking the interior before allowing Amelia and Thomas inside. "All clear," he announced, "though I suggest keeping the shutters closed today, just as a precaution." Deputy Larson and the miners took their leave, promising to remain vigilant. Barrett lingered a moment longer. "I'll spread the word quietly," he told Cole. "There are more folks in town who'll stand with us if they know a federal marshal is leading the charge." After everyone had gone, Cole turned to Amelia and her father. "You should both get some rest. I'll return later today." "Where are you going?" Amelia asked. To accept Calloway's invitation, he sent a message to the hotel yesterday, asking me to visit his ranch. After last night, he'll be expecting me to decline. The surprise might make him careless. Thomas frowned. Is that wise? Probably not, Cole admitted, but it's necessary. I need to get close enough to find evidence. Amelia wanted to protest, but knew it would be futile. This was Cole's job, what he'd been sent to Oro Grande to do. Instead, she squeezed his hand briefly. We'll be waiting. The day passed with excruciating slowness. Amelia opened the store, but had few customers. News of the previous night's confrontation had spread, making people wary of being seen at Donovan's. She used the time to catch up on bookkeeping, though her thoughts repeatedly drifted to Cole at Calloway's ranch. Late afternoon brought a visitor, Jim Barrett, his expression grim. Thought you should know, he said without preamble. Marshal rode out to Calloway's place this morning. One of the miners was coming back from the North Diggings, saw him being escorted off Calloway property at gunpoint about an hour ago. Amelia's heart lurched. Was he hurt? Couldn't tell from a distance. They were heading toward Devil's Canyon, not town. Devil's Canyon, a remote area notorious for bandit hideouts, and the occasional body found weeks after a disappearance. If Cole had been taken there. We need to help him, she said urgently. Barrett nodded. Already gathering men, 6 of us, all armed. But we need to know exactly where they've taken him. I know someone who might help, Amelia said suddenly. Miguel Santos. He works at Calloway's ranch but has family in town. He comes to the store occasionally, always pays cash for supplies that Calloway should be providing. I think he stays only because he needs the work. Can we trust him? I believe so. His sister cleans at the hotel. She might know where to find him now. Barrett left to locate Miguel while Amelia explained the situation to her father. I'm going with them, she announced, already gathering supplies. Thomas didn't try to dissuade her, recognizing the determination in his daughter's eyes. Instead, he retrieved a rifle from behind the counter. You'll need this, and take extra ammunition. You'll be all right here alone. I won't be alone, Thomas assured her. Barrett's leaving 2 men with me. Go, find your marshal, her marshal. The phrase echoed in her mind as she prepared. When had Cole Prescott become so important to her? Somewhere between his intervention at the saloon and his kiss on her cheek last night, he had worked his way into her heart. The possibility of losing him now was unbearable. Barrett returned with Miguel Santos, a quiet man in his 30s with intelligent eyes and a cautious manner. Miss Donovan, he greeted her respectfully. Mr. Barrett says you need help. Amelia explained the situation. Miguel listened gravely, then nodded. I know where they would have taken him. There's a cabin in Devil's Canyon that Calloway uses for private business. I've been ordered to bring supplies there several times. Can you lead us there? But we must hurry, if they took him this afternoon. He didn't need to finish the thought. Within 30 minutes, Amelia was riding out of Oro Grande with Barrett, Miguel, and 4 trusted men. The desert heat was intense, the sun beginning its descent toward the western mountains. They rode hard, following Miguel's lead through increasingly rough terrain. Devil's Canyon lived up to its name, a twisted maze of red rock and sparse vegetation, with sheer cliffs rising on either side. Miguel led them through what appeared to be a solid rock face, revealing a hidden trail barely wide enough for a single horse. We go on foot from here, he whispered. The cabin is just beyond that ridge. They secured their horses and continued cautiously, weapons ready. As they crested the ridge, Amelia could see a small cabin in the narrow valley below. 2 horses were tethered outside, and smoke rose from the chimney. Barrett studied the scene through a spyglass. 2 men visible. Jenkins and another of Calloway's men, no sign of the marshal or Calloway himself. Calloway wouldn't dirty his hands directly, Miguel said quietly. He would have given orders, then returned to the ranch to establish his alibi. Is the marshal inside, do you think? One of the miners asked. One way to find out, Barrett replied grimly. We need a distraction to draw them out, see what we're dealing with. I can provide that, Miguel offered. They know me, won't shoot immediately if I approach. Despite Amelia's concerns, they agreed it was their best option. Miguel would approach openly, claiming Calloway had sent him with supplies. When the men were distracted, the others would move in. Amelia watched anxiously as Miguel made his way down to the cabin, calling out in Spanish as he approached. Jenkins emerged, gun drawn but not aimed. "What are you doing here, Santos?" "Mr. Calloway sent me with food and whiskey," Miguel replied, holding up a bag they'd prepared for this purpose. "Said you might be here all night." Jenkins relaxed slightly. "About time, bring it in." As Miguel entered the cabin, Barrett signaled for them to move closer. Amelia followed, heart pounding, rifle ready. They had almost reached the cabin when a shout came from inside, followed by the distinctive sound of a fist connecting with flesh. Barrett didn't hesitate. "Now." They rushed the cabin, Barrett and 2 miners taking the front door while Amelia and the others covered the back. The ensuing confrontation was brief but violent. Jenkins and his companion, caught off guard, were quickly subdued. Miguel had a bloody nose but was otherwise unhurt. And there was Cole tied to a chair, his face bruised, a cut above one eye bleeding freely but alive. Gloriously, wonderfully alive, Amelia rushed to him, hands shaking as she untied the ropes. "Cole, are you all right?" His eyes focused on her face with difficulty. "Amelia, what are you doing here?" "Rescuing you, obviously," she replied, fighting back tears of relief. "Can you stand?" He nodded, though he winced as she helped him to his feet. "Calloway." "Not here, just these 2. She nodded toward Jenkins and the other man, now bound with the same ropes that had held Cole. Barrett approached. "Marshal, good to see you in one piece. What happened?" Cole leaned against the table for support. "Calloway knew, or suspected at least. The moment I arrived at the ranch, they disarmed me, searched me, found my badge. Calloway ordered them to bring me here, find out how much Washington knows about his operation." His laugh was without humor. "They weren't particularly gentle with their questioning." "Did they get anything from you?" Barrett asked. "No, and I learned something valuable in return." Cole gestured to a strongbox in the corner. "That contains documents records of the gold shipment robberies, division of profits. Calloway keeps meticulous accounts." Barrett whistled low. "That's enough to put him away for years." "Exactly." Cole's gaze returned to Amelia, softening. "You shouldn't have come. It was dangerous." "As if I would leave you to them," she replied, still supporting much of his weight. "Besides, it wasn't just me. Everyone here volunteered." "Thank you," Cole said to the assembled group. "All of you, I won't forget this." They made their way carefully back to the horses, Cole riding double with Amelia since Jenkins had apparently taken his mount. The journey back to Oro Grande was slower than their outward trip, measured to accommodate Cole's injuries. Night had fallen by the time they reached town. The streets were quiet, most businesses closed except for the Silver Spur, which glowed with light and echoed with piano music. They bypassed the main street, heading directly for the sheriff's office. Sheriff Wilson was clearly shocked when they entered Barrett, and 2 miners escorting Jenkins and his companion, Miguel supporting the injured marshal, and Amelia bringing up the rear with the strongbox. "What's the meaning of this?" Wilson blustered. Cole straightened painfully, producing his badge. "Federal Marshal Cole Prescott. I'm placing these men under arrest for assault on a federal officer, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit robbery of government property. And I'll be taking charge of this office until further notice, under federal authority." Wilson's face paled. "Now wait just a minute. You can wait in a cell," Barrett interrupted, "while we sort out your involvement in Calloway's operations. Miguel here has plenty to say about payoffs you've received." While the others secured the prisoners, Amelia helped Cole to a chair. "You need a doctor." "Later," he insisted. "First, I need to organize a party to arrest Calloway. He'll run if word of this reaches him." "You're in no condition to ride," she argued, Barrett overheard. "She's right, Marshal. Let me take some men out to the ranch. We'll bring Calloway in." Cole hesitated, then nodded. "Take Deputy Larson with you, and be careful Calloway won't surrender easily." As Barrett organized the posse, Amelia insisted on treating Cole's injuries. She sent Miguel to fetch the doctor, then used the sheriff's own supplies to clean the cut above Cole's eye. "You could have been killed," she said softly as she worked. "Occupational hazard," he replied, wincing as she applied antiseptic. "Though I admit I was concerned when they discovered the badge, didn't expect Calloway to be quite so thorough. What made you suspicious of him in the first place? Why Oro Grande?" Cole's expression turned somber. "My partner was investigating Calloway in Nevada. He disappeared 6 months ago. His body was found in the desert 3 weeks later." He took a shaky breath. "David was more than my partner. He was my best friend. We joined the marshals together." Understanding dawned. "That's why this case is so personal for you," he nodded. "The Nevada office couldn't prove Calloway was responsible for David's death. By the time they gathered enough evidence for the gold robberies, Calloway had already moved his operation here. I requested the assignment specifically." "For justice or revenge?" Amelia asked gently. "Both at first," Cole admitted. "But now I just want it finished. I want Calloway to face a court for his crimes, and then..." "And then," she prompted when he didn't continue. His gray eyes met hers. "And then I thought maybe I could start thinking about a future. Something beyond the next case." Before she could respond, the doctor arrived. As he examined Cole's injuries, Amelia stepped outside for a moment, needing the cool night air to clear her thoughts. Cole's words had stirred something profound within her possibility, a future she hadn't dared contemplate. When she returned, the doctor was finishing his work. "Nothing broken, thankfully. Bruised ribs, various contusions. He needs rest, but he'll heal completely with time." "Thank you, doctor," Cole said, carefully buttoning his shirt. "I appreciate your discretion in this matter. Of course, Marshal. Good luck with Calloway. Entire town will sleep easier with him behind bars." After the doctor left, Cole turned to Amelia. "You should go home, get some rest." "It's been a long day." "I'm not leaving you," she replied firmly. "Not until Calloway is in custody." He didn't argue, perhaps lacking the energy. Instead, he guided her to a chair beside his desk and began examining the documents from the strongbox. "This is even better than I hoped," he murmured as he leafed through ledgers and maps. Detailed records of each robbery, distribution of funds, names of accomplices. Calloway's meticulous record-keeping will be his downfall. The night deepened. Deputy Larson returned briefly to report that Barrett's posse had surrounded Calloway's ranch and were waiting for dawn to approach. Cole approved the strategy, then sent the young deputy to rest. In the quiet office, with only the ticking clock and occasional snores from the cells for company, Cole finally set aside the documents. "Amelia," he said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." She looked up from the book she'd been pretending to read. "Yes." "When this is over, when Calloway is in custody, and the case is closed, I'll need to return to Tucson to file my report." The words fell like stones in her stomach. Of course he would leave. His job was temporary, a specific assignment with a beginning and end. "I understand," she said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "You have responsibilities." "I do," he agreed. "But I also have choices. After I file my report, I'm entitled to some leave, and after that, well, there are marshal positions open in several territories." Hope flickered within her. "Including Arizona?" "Including Arizona," he confirmed. "Specifically, there's been talk of establishing a permanent federal presence in the growing communities east of Tucson. Oro Grande might qualify, especially with the gold mining operations expanding." "Are you saying?" "I'm saying I'd like to come back, if there's a reason for me to return." Their eyes met across the desk, the unspoken question hanging between them. Amelia's heart raced as she considered her response. They'd known each other barely a week, yet it felt like so much longer. In that short time, Cole Prescott had shown her more about courage, integrity, and genuine connection than she'd experienced in years in Oro Grande. "I think," she said carefully, "that you might find several reasons to return. The community clearly respects you. The need for law enforcement is evident, and..." She took a deep breath. And there's someone who would very much like the opportunity to know you better, without kidnappings and gunfights interrupting. His smile transformed his tired face. Just to be clear, this someone. Would she perhaps be sitting across from me right now? She might be. Cole reached across the desk, taking her hand in his. Then I definitely have a reason to come back. Morning brought news that Calloway had been captured without bloodshed. Barrett's posse had surrounded the ranch house at dawn, cutting off all escape routes. Faced with overwhelming numbers and federal charges, Calloway had surrendered with surprising dignity. By mid-morning, the infamous cattle baron was locked in Sheriff Wilson's former cell, Wilson himself occupying the adjacent one, awaiting transport to Tucson. The town of Oro Grande buzzed with the news, people gathering in small groups to discuss the dramatic turn of events. Thomas Donovan arrived at the sheriff's office with fresh clothes for both Cole and Amelia, along with a basket of food from Martha's Cafe. "Whole town's talking," he reported as they ate. "Most folk are relieved, though Calloway had his supporters. Barrett and some of the miners are standing guard at the store, just in case." "Good thinking," Cole approved. "Calloway's operation was extensive. We may not have identified all his associates yet." "What happens now?" Thomas asked. "I'll need to escort Calloway and the evidence to Tucson," Cole explained. "Federal judge, there will determine jurisdiction for the trial. Given the nature of the crimes robbing government shipments crosses territorial lines, it will likely be a federal case." "When do you leave?" Amelia tried to keep her voice neutral. "Tomorrow morning. U.S. Marshal's office is sending a wagon and additional deputies." Cole glanced at her, his expression softening. "It shouldn't take more than 2 weeks to complete the necessary paperwork and give my testimony to the grand jury." Thomas looked between them, a knowing smile crossing his weathered face. "Well, Marshal Prescott, you'll always have a place to stay in Oro Grande when you return. Our home is open to you." "Thank you, sir. I appreciate that." The day passed in a flurry of activity statements taken, evidence catalogued, telegrams sent to Tucson and Washington. By evening, everything was prepared for Calloway's transfer. Cole, finally allowing his exhaustion to show, accepted Thomas's invitation to supper at the store. The meal was subdued, all three of them feeling the weight of the day's events and the impending separation. After they'd eaten, Thomas tactfully excused himself, claiming the need to check inventory in the storeroom. Alone in the small parlor, Amelia and Cole sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "I'll write," Cole finally said, "and telegraph when I know exactly when I'll return." "I'd like that." Amelia hesitated, then added, "I've never been good at waiting, but I think you're worth waiting for." Cole moved to sit beside her on the small sofa. "These past days have been extraordinary, not just the case, but meeting you. I've never met anyone like you, Amelia." "Is that good or bad?" she asked, trying to lighten the mood. "Definitely good." He took her hand, running his thumb across her knuckles. "In my work, I've learned to trust my instincts. They tell me that what's between us is rare and worth pursuing." Amelia's heart swelled with emotion. "I feel the same way." Cole leaned closer, his gray eyes asking a silent question. In answer, Amelia closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his in a gentle kiss. It was brief but perfect a promise. A beginning, when they parted, Cole's smile was tender. "Something to remember during our time apart." "Something to look forward to when you return," she countered. The next morning dawned clear and bright. The marshal's wagon arrived as expected, accompanied by 2 deputies who greeted Cole with professional respect. The transfer of prisoners went smoothly, Calloway maintaining a dignified silence, while Wilson alternated between protests of innocence and demands for legal representation. Most of the town gathered to watch the departure. Many approached Cole to shake his hand or express gratitude for freeing them from Calloway's grip. Barrett and his miners stood as an informal honor guard, rifles respectfully lowered as the wagon prepared to leave. Amelia and Thomas stood at the edge of the crowd. Cole sought them out for a final farewell. Mr. Donovan," he said, shaking Thomas's hand firmly. "Thank you for your hospitality and assistance. I couldn't have succeeded without your help." "The thanks are ours, Marshal," Thomas replied warmly. "Safe journey." When Cole turned to Amelia, words seemed inadequate. "2 weeks," he said softly. "It'll pass quickly." "Not quickly enough," she replied, blinking back unexpected tears. "Be careful. Always am." He hesitated, then leaned down to whisper in her ear, "Look after my heart. I'm leaving it here with you." Then he was gone, mounting his horse and leading the wagon out of town. Amelia watched until the dust cloud faded in the distance, her father's supportive hand on her shoulder. "He'll be back," Thomas said confidently. "Man doesn't look at a woman the way he looks at you if he's not coming back." The days that followed settled into a new rhythm. With Calloway gone, the town began to heal. Businesses that had been pressured into closing reopened. Ranchers who had been forced to sell returned to reclaim their property, backed by court orders and the newly appointed acting sheriff Jim Barrett, who had agreed to serve until a permanent replacement could be elected. For Amelia and Thomas, business improved dramatically. Customers returned without fear, and the store became a hub for town gossip. Much of it centered around that handsome marshal and his promised return. Cole's first letter arrived 5 days after his departure, delivered by the weekly mail coach. Amelia retreated to her room to read it privately, savoring his descriptions of the journey to Tucson and his preliminary meetings with the federal prosecutor. Between official details, he'd included personal reflections that made her blush and smile. "I find myself looking for your face in every crowd," he'd written. "Ridiculous, since I know you're in Oro Grande, but my heart seems to expect you around every corner." She wrote back immediately, describing the changes in town and how she'd taken to walking past the sheriff's office each day, remembering their conversations there. She sealed the letter with a touch of the lavender water she sometimes wore, a small intimacy that made her cheeks warm. The promised 2 weeks stretched to 3 as legal proceedings moved more slowly than anticipated. Cole's telegrams were apologetic, but reassuring he was making progress, and each day brought him closer to returning. On a warm Tuesday afternoon, exactly 24 days after Cole's departure, Amelia was arranging a display of new fabric when the store door opened. She looked up with her usual welcoming smile, then froze. Cole Prescott stood in the doorway, his tall frame silhouetted against the bright sunlight. He looked rested, his injuries healed, dressed not in the practical clothes of a working lawman, but in a well-cut suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. "Amelia," he said simply, his voice washing over her like cool water in the desert. She abandoned the fabric display without a second thought, crossing the store in quick steps. He met her halfway, gathering her into an embrace that lifted her feet from the floor. "You're back," she whispered, barely trusting her voice. "I'm back," he confirmed, setting her down gently but keeping his arms around her. "For good, if you'll have me." Thomas emerged from the storeroom, his face breaking into a broad smile at the sight of them. "Marshal Prescott." "Welcome back to Oro Grande." "Mr. Donovan," Cole greeted him, reluctantly releasing Amelia. "And it's just Cole now, or it will be in 2 weeks." "You're resigning your position?" Amelia asked, surprised. "Not exactly." Cole's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I've been reassigned. The Justice Department has approved a new federal marshal's office in Oro Grande, given the increasing population and gold shipments. I'll be the senior marshal, with authority to hire deputies." Thomas clapped him on the shoulder. "Congratulations! That's wonderful news." "There's more," Cole continued, his gaze returning to Amelia. "The position comes with land 10 acres just outside town, currently government-owned. There's nothing built there yet, but there's a good well, and the soil is suitable for a garden, maybe even an orchard eventually." Amelia's heart raced as she understood the implication. "That sounds like you're planning to stay for quite some time." "I am." He took her hand, his expression turning serious. "I know this is fast, Amelia. We've known each other barely a month, but some things you just know. I've never been more certain of anything in my life than I am of my feelings for you. Thomas cleared his throat. I believe I have inventory to check, very detailed inventory. Might take hours. He winked at Amelia before disappearing into the back room. Alone, Cole led Amelia to the small sitting area by the window. I had a speech prepared, he admitted. Practiced it the whole ride from Tucson, but now that I'm here looking at you. He shook his head. Words don't seem adequate. Then don't use words, Amelia suggested softly. He smiled, then knelt before her, drawing a small box from his pocket. Amelia Donovan, will you marry me? Build a life with me here in Oro Grande. It won't always be easy, the territory is still wild in many ways, but I promise to love you, protect you, and stand by you through whatever comes. Tears blurred her vision as she looked at the ring, a delicate gold band with a small but perfect diamond. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Cole Prescott. I will marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then rose to kiss her, a deep, tender kiss that held all the promise of their future together. That evening, they celebrated at the Silver Spur Saloon, the same place where they'd first met. The establishment had transformed in Calloway's absence, becoming a genuine gathering place for the community rather than a den of intimidation. The new owner, surprisingly, Deputy Larson's uncle from San Francisco, had renovated, adding more tables and a proper stage for musicians. The town's residents welcomed Cole back enthusiastically, and news of the engagement spread quickly. By the time supper was served, the saloon was packed with well-wishers. Jim Barrett gave a toast, raising his glass to the marshal who brought justice and the woman brave enough to stand beside him. As the evening progressed, a traveling musician took the stage with his guitar. The crowd quieted as he began to play, his voice rich and mellow in the lamp-lit room. This one's for the happy couple, he announced, nodding toward Cole and Amelia. A song about finding love when and where you least expect it. The melody was haunting, the lyrics speaking of loneliness transformed by unexpected connection. The chorus, "Please stay with me," repeated with increasing emotion each time. Cole drew Amelia to her feet as others cleared a space for dancing. "May I have this dance, future Mrs. Prescott?" "You may," she replied, stepping into his arms. As they moved together in the warm glow of the saloon, surrounded by friends in a town being reborn, Amelia reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. A month ago, she had been a shopkeeper's daughter with limited prospects in a town controlled by a criminal. Now she was engaged to a man of honor with a future bright with possibility. "What are you thinking?" Cole murmured, his lips close to her ear. "That life can change completely in the space of a heartbeat," she answered. "That night when you stepped out of the shadows to defend me, it changed everything." "For me too," he admitted. "I came to Oro Grande seeking justice, maybe even revenge. I never expected to find a home, or you." The song concluded, the final "Please stay with me" fading into applause. Cole and Amelia remained in each other's arms a moment longer, reluctant to break the spell. 6 weeks later, on a perfect autumn day, they were married in the mission church where Amelia had once sought refuge. Father Mendoza officiated, his weathered face beaming as he pronounced them husband and wife. The entire town attended, filling the small chapel to overflowing and spilling out into the courtyard where tables had been set for the celebration to follow. Their home on the outskirts of town was simple but well-built, constructed with the help of many hands. Barrett and the miners had laid the foundation. Thomas and several other businessmen had contributed lumber and furnishings. The women of Oro Grande had sewn curtains and quilts, filled the pantry with preserves, and planted the beginnings of the garden Cole had envisioned. That first night in their new home, as they stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert in gold and crimson, Cole wrapped his arms around his wife from behind. "Happy?" he asked, his breath warm against her neck. "Completely," she assured him, leaning back against his solid strength. though I still can't believe how quickly everything happened. 6 months ago, I'd never heard of Cole Prescott, he chuckled. And I had no idea Oro Grande existed, let alone that it held my future. Do you ever regret it? She asked, turning in his arms to face him, the speed of it all. Not for a single moment, he replied without hesitation. Some people search their whole lives for what we found in an instant. I'm just grateful I walked into that saloon on the right night. As am I, Amelia agreed, rising on tiptoe to kiss him. Though I still think your timing could have been better. If you'd arrived 5 minutes earlier, my father might never have been arrested. Then I might never have had reason to visit your store, Cole pointed out. And where would we be now? The question was rhetorical, impossible to answer. Would their paths have crossed eventually? Would they have recognized each other's significance without the circumstances that had thrown them together? Such questions belonged to a different reality, one they would never know. What they did know was this: a life built together in a town that had given them both a second chance. Cole's position as marshal brought stability to Oro Grande, and with stability came growth. New businesses opened, families moved in, the school expanded. Amelia continued to help her father with the store while developing her own interests, particularly in education. She began teaching reading classes for the children of miners and ranch hands, many of whom had never had formal schooling. Their first child, a son they named David Thomas Prescott, arrived exactly 1 year after their wedding. He had his father's gray eyes and his mother's determined spirit. By his first birthday, he was toddling around the garden that had indeed flourished under Amelia's care. Their daughter, Elizabeth Rose, followed 2 years later, completing their family. Cole proved to be a devoted father, balancing his duties as marshal with his commitment to being present for every milestone. As the children grew, so did Oro Grande. The Wild West was gradually becoming less wild, though Cole's services were still required more often than they might have liked. Each time he rode out to investigate a robbery or pursue a fugitive, Amelia faced her fears with the same courage she'd shown that first night in the saloon. And each time he returned home safely, they renewed their private tradition. In the quiet of evening, when the children were asleep, they would sit on their porch and count their blessings. Sometimes they spoke of the strange twists of fate that had brought them together: a criminal's ambition, a daughter's determination, a lawman's quest for justice. More often, they simply enjoyed the peace they'd found together, watching the stars emerge in the desert sky. On the 5th anniversary of their meeting, Cole arranged a special surprise. He escorted Amelia to the Silver Spur, now a respectable establishment where families dined alongside cowboys and miners. The same musician who had played at their engagement celebration had returned to town, and Cole had arranged for him to perform. As the familiar melody filled the room, Cole led Amelia to the dance floor. 5 years, he murmured as they swayed together. Sometimes it feels like yesterday we met. And sometimes it feels like I've known you forever, she replied, resting her head against his chest. The chorus swelled around them, "Please stay with me," the words that had become a touchstone of their relationship. "I'm still staying," Cole promised, his lips brushing her temple. "So am I," Amelia assured him. "Forever." They continued to dance as the song played on, two people who had found each other in a dusty saloon on a lonely night, creating a love story that would become part of Oro Grande's enduring legacy. Years later, when their children were grown and Oro Grande had transformed from a rough frontier town into a thriving community, Cole and Amelia would sometimes visit the old Silver Spur, now a historic landmark preserved as a reminder of the town's colorful past. They would sit in the corner where a federal marshal once watched a brave young woman stand up to dangerous men, and they would smile at the memory of how it all began, and occasionally, if the moment was right, Cole would still sing softly to his wife, "Please stay with me." Her answer, after all their years together, remained the same: a kiss, a smile and the promise that had shaped their lives always.